When Roald Dahl was a little boy, he went to a chocolate factory that was owned by Cadbury, one of the most famous chocolate makers in the world. This factory was right next to his boarding school, so the students there would go on a tour there quite often. So when Roald Dahl was a little boy, and when he would walk down the aisles of the factory, he was intrigued by the fantastic machines and contraptions in the factory, and to him, the workers seemed like they were part of a magical world. All of these experiences stayed with him and found their way into his writing. And that's how we got the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which has become one of the most beloved books for a lot of kids around the world. And he's also inspired generations of readers, both young and old, to dream of a world filled with candy. All of us, just like Roald Dahl, have great stories to tell, but not many of us know how to write them well. This episode is going to help us figure out how to unleash the author in each one of us and get to share our stories with the rest of the world. Hi there, you're listening to What's New Today, a kids and family podcast about current events shaping our world. This is Sangeeta, your host from India, and in this episode, I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Avni. I study in grade 6th in Ahlcon Public School. I like playing basketball and I'm 10 years old.
Hello, I am Ambika Gupta. I study in class 5 in Ahlcon Public School. I live in Delhi and like to read books. I am 9 years old.
Hi, I'm Geetanjali Shetty Kaul, a professional storyteller, a mindfulness coach. My company name is the Secret Passages Storytellers.
Welcome Avni, Ambika and Geetanjali. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts and ideas on what makes for a great story to be written. Before we jump into that, I just wanted to ask Avni and Ambika, when you heard that Geetanjali is a professional storyteller, did you think that you might want to hear her retell any stories that you've read and something that's very close to your heart?
Well, I read this book of Sudha Murthy in which there were many stories from mythology. So I'd like a professional storyteller to tell me one of those stories because all of them are really interesting.
I would like any novel by Enid Blyton, since she's my favorite author, to be retold by a professional storyteller. I really like her books.
Oh wow, very interesting choice of authors. Sudha Murthy and Enid Blyton, very diverse also. So what goes on in your mind, Avni, when you pick up a Sudha Murthy book and read it?
Well, I think that my grandmother is telling me a story because, my grandmother doesn't really tell me a story. So it's like I have another grandmother in the book that's telling me a story.
Wow. I think Sudha Murthy will be overawed if she does hear you say this.
Very emotional. I love it. So the bonding. We love the bonding.
Yes.
Ambika, what do you feel when you're reading a Famous Five or a Nancy Drew story?
Feel like there's a very deep mystery, and I feel like, oh, what's gonna happen next? And just I'm intrigued by that whole story and how she has connected all those parts and made a whole book. Why will the character do this or that? It's not right. What will happen next? I get curious and intrigued by the whole happening.
Lovely. So normally, Geetanjali probably would be telling us stories, but in today's podcast, she's here to guide us on the process of how to writing creatively for many different reasons.
So, how do you develop your daily practices of writing?
I think that by making a routine and making achievable word counts, then I can make a habit of writing regularly.
What's an achievable word count for someone who's just gone to 5th grade?
I think 700 to 1000 or 1200 words a session.
How much time do you think it'll take for you to write 700 to 1,000 words in one session?
I think half an hour, 1 hour only.
700 to 1,000 words, that's incredible. So you may even write 700, 1,000, 1,500 words in an hour. However, to become an exceptional writer, you'll have to bring soul to your work. How do you do that?
I try to make my stories different from the ones I've already read, but I choose the genre from the ones I like, and then I try to add something new to my book. It doesn't feel like oh, it's the same like other books.
Wow!
Now, Enid Blyton wrote stories of her time about the way she felt about people and her experiences. And Sudhamurti grew up listening to mythologies from her grandparents. So she decided to write stories that were to do with mythology so that the next generation also stays in touch with their culture, traditions. So, what is that spark that is currently talking to you?
Geetanjali, you're a professional storyteller, which means you retell an existing story, right? So, what kind of changes do you make, if you make any at all, or do you just stick to telling the story as is?
Recently, I curated a fir tree story which originally spoke about the tree being misused. And in my rendering, I have created the experience of the tree adapting to every change that's happening. So, after being decorated as a Christmas tree, the tree is hurt for being dragged and thrown out. But the chance meeting with a little mouse who listens to the tree, just quietly understanding the feelings of the tree feels comfortable. So then I continue the story saying that the tree then makes a choice. So as the wood was burned to give warmth to all of those sitting there in a circle, the tree was happy to give.
Oh, wow, that's a very interesting way to retell the story with a very different perspective. Ambika and Avni, is there a story that you would like to retell a little differently? Anything that you may have read?
Yes, well, there was a story in my Hindi textbook in which they told about a boy and a tree, and the tree gave the boy whatever he needed. So, in the end, what happened is that the boy turned into an old man slowly as time passed, and the tree had been cut down, so it was just a stump. So in the end the old man wanted to rest, so he sat on the stump, and that was the end. So I didn't think it was pretty fulfilling.
I also read The Giving Tree. It was like in the I watched the video of that. It was a bit sad in the end when the tree gave everything to the boy, and still the boy did not care for all that.
Oh, I think that both of these stories can be retold, right? So, all our listeners and Ambika and Avni, if you'd like to take these two stories that you just spoke about and would like to modify them, whichever way you would like to, maybe change the ending. So, try it out, rewrite the story, and send it across to us at hello@wsnt.in. That's our email ID. We're not ending the episode here. There's a lot more to discuss. I've got a question for Geetanjali. So, if someone does not already have a story that they would like to retell, where else can we all get inspirations or new ideas for a fresh story that we want to write?
So the first thing you need to begin practicing is to become more and more present. When you become more and more present, you find opportunities to learn from the environment, to observe the little squirrels scamper around, to have dialogues with co passengers when you're traveling. Look for stories in your everyday life. As you become more and more present, you also begin to check your feelings. How are you feeling when you get angry? And just keep journaling your experiences. Like if you get angry, you can sketch how Mr. Angry looks like and then think about having a dialogue with you and Mr. Anger. And then you write the dialogue between devil and I.
I have a question. What is your favorite part about writing when you process?
Well, my favorite part of writing is creating 5 to 6 scenes. I craft them with detailing and bring sensorial experiences so that the reader would be hooked to know what is going to happen next. And also, the reader feels like revisiting some scenes in the story.
Who is your favorite author?
My favorite children's author would be Rabindranath Tagore. I love reading a story of a time in history that made the characters become more human and where they could be kind towards each other and learn how to be empathetic, and by doing small gestures and act of kindness you could actually change lives. You have stories of partitions, sudden turbulence that takes place.
I also like history.
Are you ever able to empathize with a bad character?
Yeah, sometimes.
But if I were ever to write a book, then I would make all the characters grey, that they should have a bad side, but it should have a good side too.
I agree with Avni. 21st century readers are, no more seeing villains dying as villains. They know that villains can go through character arc and they too can change by the end of the story. Also thinking that heroes never fail, or heroes never make mistakes. Now we resonate with stories where heroes also go through transit, they deal with their own villainous traits, and then they transform.
So I would make the characters a bit more relatable than just making one black and one white.
Wow, words of wisdom. So while we are at the point about discussing how villain characters could potentially evolve, I'm also a little keen to understand what kind of environments and stories do you think children would find very pleasant? Or in other words, if you can think of a story that you've read and you would actually like to be in that story, what would that be?
Well, I would like to be in Nancy Drew, and I just wish that in the Sudhamurti story, in which he told all about the mythology, I wish I was just a little snake. Back then, I could just see all of the happening.
Ambika?
I feel like I wanted to be in all of the books that I've read so far by Enid Blyton, because all the mystery and all the fun and all the school happenings, they're just so engaging that I just want to be in that.
You're
And-
okay with going to a boarding school? Like Anne and Julian and all go to a boarding school, no? In Famous Five?
In Famous Five, actually, the stories are set in like their summer holidays or any holidays. So I would like to be in the holidays.
Wonderful. So now we know what kind of characters we want to write about, what kind of settings we'd like them to be in. So, Avni and Ambika, if y'all wanted to pick up a pen and write a new story, do you think you've got a lot of interesting things that you've learned from this conversation?
I like the idea of writing in a journal about our emotions and about our emotions like the devil anger and the devil fear or the devil loneliness.
I also liked about writing engaging scenes in books to hook the reader, and I really like to write in a journal. That's a really good idea.
700 to 1,000 words a day. Your achievable word count, as you called it. Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to hear and good wishes. And if you do write, right, will you please share one of those instances with us sometime?
Yes, I will send a pic to you.
Yeah, that would be
Me too.
great. That's
Me too.
proof.
Now, before we end every episode, we usually do a quiz time, and we do have a quiz time in this episode too, but it's a quiz with a slight twist. I'm going to leave you with some questions, and you can send us your answers to us via email at hello@wsnt.in, or if you're listening to this on Spotify, if you just scroll right down below to the show notes, you'll have a place where you can leave your answers right there. So here's your question. If you were to meet any of the characters in a Famous Five book and you were to actually enter the book, what do you think the characters are more likely to be doing? Are they more likely to be sleeping all day long, or are they more likely to be running around the countryside and trying to find a hidden object? That brings us to the end of this episode. If you, like Avni and Ambika, really enjoyed some of the tips that Geetanjali had to offer us, I hope you too will be inspired to pick up a pen and write a wonderful story. If you do share it with us at hello@wsnt.in, or you could send it to us on Instagram, and we'd love to share your stories with the rest of the world on our social media channels. So what are you waiting for? Grab that pen and get started with your writing. And thanks for listening.